Hi, welcome to another reading vlog. This week, I decided to pick up this book that I had on my shelf, which is The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. I think this is like a retelling of the Battle of Troy, but from the perspective of the woman in the story, I think. It's been a while since this book came out and since I was interested in reading it, and then I discovered it at a secondhand bookshop, and so now I'm excited to read it. I've always really loved Greek mythology. I think partly because when I was really young, I think maybe like 6 or 7, I had this teacher who, in the last kind of 5 minutes before she'd let us go, she would tell us just a little bit of like different Greek myths. I particularly remember her telling the story of Perseus and Medusa, and so that, I guess, leads me to the next book that I'm going to try and read in this reading vlog, which is Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes, I think? Let me check. Natalie Haynes. So this, I believe, is a Medusa retelling. I've read a few Greek retellings in recent times. I've read Circe, I really loved that, as well as Son of Achilles, which I really wasn't a fan of. So I'm hoping this will be a better retelling of the Battle of Troy. I feel like there's something else that I'm forgetting as well. I'll put it here if I remember when I'm editing. But anyway, I'm really excited about Stone Blind. I don't know much more about it other than it's a Medusa retelling, but honestly, that's enough for me. The other book that I do have is one that I picked up from the shelves outside the library where they put books that they are getting rid of out for free. I picked up this retelling. I think it's like a whole bunch of Greek myths but told by Percy Jackson. So if you don't know, the Percy Jackson books is basically like a modern YA type book about this boy who discovers he's the son of... You know what? I think it's spoilers to say who he's the son of, because the first book is all about him discovering which Greek god he's the son of. And I don't really know. I think it's going to be written in a very particular style, and I don't know if I'm going to like it, but I thought I could at least start it and read some of the myths. I think it spends like a chapter focusing on each of the different Olympians. I could be wrong, but I'm going to try and read some of these as well. I know that Riordan would have done a lot of research about Greek mythology, writing all the Percy Jackson books and then the other series that he wrote in the same kind of world. So I'm expecting they should be fairly good depictions of the myths. Then as well, there is one other book that I'm about halfway through that I'm trying to stretch to say that it fits in the theme, but I'm not sure. I think I'm stretching it. But basically, I'm about a third of the way through Half Bad by Sally Green. So Half Bad is a book that I've read before. I think somewhere behind me. I don't think you can see them. But I really love that series. I always remember the third and final book in the trilogy. I just bawled my eyes out for like 20 minutes. It was very upsetting. And I'm really wanting to have that feeling again because recently there's a Netflix adaptation of that book series. And I watched it and I did enjoy it. But I also thought, I can't remember in what ways this is different from the book, but I feel like it's very different from the book. So it follows a boy who is half white witch, half black witch. His father, the black witch, is very feared and kind of like an evil guy that everyone is against. But maybe there's more to the story. And this half white witch, half black witch is really watched by the witches' council, and they're very harsh towards him. And I think something the book does really well is kind of describe his feelings of like a fear of who he is, but also this like otherness that's being forced upon him. And as well, I think the biggest change between the book and the TV show is that in the TV show, he's only got this one sister who doesn't really like him. Whereas in the book, he's got one sister who doesn't really like him, but also he has a brother and a sister who are really supportive of him. And it's showing how like he's growing up in this really loving family, and how that contrasts with the way that he's being treated by everyone else. And I just feel like a lot of the emotions weren't as well depicted in the TV show. The TV show is more about this friend dynamic, which, I mean, in the book, I haven't really gotten any of that yet. So I am really enjoying this reread, and I think I'm going to finish off Half Bad before I pick up Stone Blind. But hopefully, I should have a decent amount of time for reading over the next week or so, because I only have one more week of work, and it's Thursday night right now, so tomorrow I've got my infusion, which debatably means I have lots of time for reading, although if you've watched my vlogs for a while, you know I often, even though for my infusion I go to the hospital and just sit there for 3 hours with nothing else to do, somehow I'm really bad at focusing on reading during that time. But I'm going to take this book along to my infusion, and I'm also going to walk there if the weather behaves, so I'll get lots of audiobook reading during that time. And just then it's the weekend, and next week, since it's my last week of work, I think I've only got like 5 meetings for the whole week, and I've just got like a bunch of tidy up emails to do and tidying up some spreadsheets. Honestly, it should be a pretty cruisy week, so again, I should have time to do things outside of work because I'm letting things go now. I'm so excited. And it's almost Christmas, and just, I feel so much better. And maybe I'll even be able to film some more videos soon, other than just vlogs. We'll see. We might not properly get into that until after Christmas, in the summer holidays, because we are definitely going away for a decent amount over the summer. Anyway, that's the intro. I'm going to go for a walk now and listen to my audiobook and just enjoy the freedom. Hello, good morning. So, it's Saturday now, the proper weekend. Yesterday I did manage to be somewhat productive, including a nap, but I needed a nap, so I'm counting that as productivity. I will admit, in the morning I took this to my infusion and I read about 50 pages, which is not bad, but it's also not great for 3 hours. I was a little bit distracted because the nurses were all really stressed because they booked everyone to come in at the same time, and the way that one of the nurses was dealing with the stress was quite frustrating to me. And then as well, they just rebooked everyone for 6 weeks in the future, all coming in at the same time. But this one particular nurse was like, no, but it'll be fine next time. But check back in 6 weeks, I bet she's frustrated and stressed again, unless she's smart enough not to put herself on that shift. Anyway, it was all very frustrating, but I read about 50 pages of this, and the thing that I'm frustrated with is that it mostly seems to be the story of Achilles again, which I feel like I only just recently read the Song of Achilles. It must be the Song of Achilles. And I didn't really like that, definitely not as much as a lot of other people did, and so just getting the same story again is frustrating. And it is told from the perspective of, what's her name? Briseis? But like still mostly she's telling the story of Achilles just from her perspective. There's not that much of her own story. And I mean, she's a captive of him, so she doesn't have a lot of freedom to do stuff, and she's suffering a lot from the sacking of her city and the death of everyone she loves. But I also feel like the way that she's dealing with it is very like disconnecting from her emotions, and so you don't actually get to feel a lot of the emotions of the story. And while that's really probably quite realistic, I want to feel the emotions. So I felt like I was struggling with this a little bit, and what I ended up doing is looking up the audiobook at my library, and it was available. So then I read another 50 pages, but listening to the audiobook while I read along to the book. Now I know this is something a lot of other people do a lot, but I have never done it before. I actually found it was quite good for a book that I'm struggling with. I still feel like I'm getting that physical book reading experience, but the audiobook just like keeps me moving at the pace I need to go, so I don't get distracted and just stop reading. Although I also think at some points the audiobook slows me down, because I could read this faster with my eyes than I could listen to the audiobook. I was listening to the audiobook at 2 times speed, and I don't really like to listen to audiobooks much faster than that unless I'm really not enjoying it and I just want to blast through it. But anyway, this, I guess I'm about a third of the way through. I'll continue it. Hopefully we'll get a bit more to the story other than just Achilles and Patroclus? I'm really not very good at pronouncing names from Greek mythology, but I try. Anyway, I'm not sure how I'm feeling about this, but I will keep going with it. The other thing that I did do is on my walk to the hospital, I finished off listening to Half Bad, and I really loved it. I was worried that on a reread it wouldn't be as good as I remembered, because I don't read a lot of YA fantasy anymore, just because I feel like it became less and less relatable to me. But this reminds me that there is still YA fantasy out there that I can really enjoy. I really love, though, the emotional journey of the story, and it's so different from the Netflix adaptation, because I feel like they changed the order of the events so much, and it means that something that happens with Annalise near the end of the book didn't have anywhere near the same emotional impact. In fact, it didn't even happen the same way. There's so many great parts of the book where things are so emotional, and those are the parts they seem to have taken out of the adaptation. And somehow I feel like we've both lost the main character Nathan's connection with the other characters because you don't get to see those building in the same way. But also, like, part of his connection with these other characters is how much time he's forced to spend by himself. Whereas in the adaptation, he's not alone at all. And as well, I feel like in the TV adaptation, it's really focusing on making one guy the villain within the White Witch Council. Whereas the book is more about like the corruption of the system, which I think is much more interesting than just like this guy is bad because he's a dick. So just overall, I did enjoy the adaptation when I watched it, but having reread the book, I do think it could have been a lot better, and I'm excited to continue rereading that series actually. One other thing I learned though is French accents. Nice. Anyway, it is going to be a really nice sunny weekend. Jace is coming around, so we're going to enjoy the sunshine, and I probably won't do any more reading until after that. But the weather's been unpredictable for a little while, so I'm glad we get to enjoy the sunshine for a bit, and when I've done some more reading, I'll catch up with you again. Hello, so that weekend felt very short actually, but now it is Monday afternoon and I've already got 3 days more of work and my to-do list is getting very empty, and so I'm nearly done with all of that and I'm feeling very good about it. And then I can have a super long weekend, it'll be summer, everything's going to be great. I just have to make it through the next 3 days. Anyway, I wanted to update you on my reading. So, firstly, Silence of the Girls. I've been reading this. I'm a little bit annoyed about it. And I think actually, even though I was enjoying listening to the audiobook and reading it at the same time, I think I'm just going to skip entirely to the audiobook because even though, like, I'm both really annoyed about this and also kind of enjoying it. So I want to continue it, but also I may as well just listen to the audiobook. Because I also started reading this and I'm enjoying this a lot more. So anyway, that's the way I'm going to do it. Also, I got up to part 2 of this and it switched. The audiobook switched to like a male narrator and it switched to being third person following the story of Achilles and all the men. And I feel like my main problem with this book is that I've been lied to. I checked the back because I thought maybe I just misunderstood what this book was meant to be about, but it says that it is meant to be the story of the women who were silenced by their fates. It's meant to be giving voice to the Trojan woman, and yet it's just frickin' Achilles' story, and I don't want Achilles' story. And I even dug out this book so I could hold it up. It's this book's fault that I don't want Achilles' story. I think if I hadn't read this and been so annoyed by Patroclus and Achilles in this story, that I wouldn't be so annoyed about getting Achilles' story in this, but I really didn't like this. The more I sit with it, the more I didn't like it. And I know a lot of people love this, so if you love this, you're probably not going to be annoyed with this in the way that I am. But I was promised, well, I was told I was going to get the story of the women of Troy, and really I'm just getting Achilles' story told from Briseis's point of view. And that's not what I wanted. And just like when I got that chapter that wasn't even told in the voice of the woman, and I thought actually the whole part 2 was going to be Achilles' perspective, and I was very mad. However, I think now we're alternating between Briseis's point of view and this third person following the boys around kind of perspective. Still, that's too much of the boys for me. I wanted a story of the women of Troy, and I'm sad that this isn't it. If it had said just another story of Achilles, I would not have picked it up. But anyway, as I said, it's okay. I'm continuing it. I'm going to go for a long walk this afternoon after I do some filming, and I'll see how much of it I can get through then. I think I'm not quite halfway. I didn't read that much in the weekend at all, to be honest. What I did read more of was this. However, I'm looking and I think I actually only read 40 pages, but still, this I'm enjoying a lot. So it's basically a whole bunch of Greek myths. It started out with the creation myth, and it's told in a very accessible way. Like, it's probably written more of a middle grade level, although maybe there's a few bits that are borderline YA. I do think it deals pretty well with the fact that like Greek mythology has a lot of like murder and incest and all that kind of stuff. And I did wonder how this was going to deal with that, but it deals with it pretty well, like calling out this is an awful thing, but remember, gods aren't really the same as humans, and this was a different time, and kind of still makes it fun at the same time. What I will also say, so one criticism I would have of this book is that quite often people are speaking in this really like modern way of speaking, and I don't really like this in this one, because this one feels more adult and historical to me, even though I know it's a myth, it's not necessarily true, but like this feels very jarring when the characters speak in a modern way that I wouldn't expect of people back in ancient Greek times, even though really, who was there? We don't know how they spoke, but they didn't speak just like people down at the pub, you know? Which is sometimes how they speak in that. Maybe they did, I don't know, but it's too modern sometimes for me. This one though as well, when there is dialogue, it will also be written in a modern way, but it fits the tone of the story because it's just Percy saying, and then she said something like this, you know? So it fits the tone of the book better. Whereas with this one, I don't feel like it fits the tone at all. Anyway, I'm going to try and read some more of this tonight when I go to bed. I think I will fly through it because I really read for a very short amount of time on the weekend. So even though I only got through 40 pages, I think that was pretty good for the amount of time I put into it. And I think I can get through that pretty fast. I am annoyed that I still haven't picked up the Medusa audiobook. Hopefully once I finish the Silence of the Girls audiobook, I'll be able to pick that up as well. I'm going to try and go for a lot of really long walks this week because the sun is promising to stick around. Is it? Maybe not, actually. Now I'm remembering I saw something about rain, but I'm going to pretend that's not true because I feel like emotionally this is a sunny week for me. Anyway, I'm going to go and film an actual video that's not a vlog for the first time in ages, which maybe will be up when I post this vlog. No, probably not. It's probably going to take me a million years to edit it. Anyway, I'll read some more stuff and I'll check in again. Hello, good morning. So I have made it to my last day of work. To be honest, it's been taking all my motivation and all my focus just to be able to turn up to work every day. I think especially it's worse because I'm working remote, so I just have to like sit here at my desk and try to like care about these things that, to be honest, I don't care about very much anymore. I'm just ready to be gone. But there's still some things I need to do. Not many today, but I did have a few things to do the last couple of days. And because I've been using all my mental energy on just doing the work, it's not even that hard, but I don't care anymore. Anyway, I haven't had much mental energy left over for reading, unfortunately. So I haven't done much, and I've just realized I didn't bring all the books in here, but I did bring this one in. So, this one. Yeah, I don't think my thoughts changed very much. There was still a lot of like explanation of the feelings of Achilles, and some of that was really lovely, probably, but I don't care about Achilles, so I don't know. I guess I don't care about a lot of things at the moment, but I did want to hear the feelings of the woman, and the feelings of the woman, like these are women who've been raped and enslaved, and their feelings are barely touched on, even though the author has shown with Achilles that she can express people's emotions in beautiful poetic ways. So like the writing of this isn't bad, and I think if this had been marketed differently, maybe it would be fine, but just it's not the book that I wanted or that I was expecting it to be. And there were just so many annoying lines. Like there's one part where, are we worried about spoiling Greek mythology? I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna spoil it, so if you don't want to be spoiled, I don't know. So Patroclus dies, and then Briseis, like this is a man who everyone keeps saying he's so nice, but he's still involved in the enslavement of these women, and the way that he's nice to them by like giving them a cup of wine and like talking to them like they're people, like it's the bare minimum, guys. So he's not that great. And she's referring to him as like a really good friend. No, also, there's another part where the Greeks go off to fight the Trojans, and she's like, I don't know which side I want to win. Like, nothing has really happened to convince me that you wouldn't want your own family and your own people to win against the people who have raped and enslaved you. Like, there's been no relationship built to really explain that kind of mood, and just, I felt like if you're going to try and do a retelling like this, you need to make me believe that Briseis actually cares about them. And actually, in the Song of Achilles, I believed it a lot more than I believed it in this. In this, I was just like, no. I just can't believe anything that happened. This book really disappointed me. I do see that there are more books in this series, like following on the story, and part of me is tempted to read them in the hope that we get more of the woman's story, because reading the synopsis it seems like we might, but also am I just going to be disappointed again? I don't know. Also, I started listening to the audio of Stone Blind, and I'm a little bit afraid that it's going to be another one that is a marketing fail, because it seems like the Medusa part of the story is being sidelined a little bit by just the regular stories of the Greek gods being petty dicks. And I know that's what they're supposed to be like, but I don't necessarily enjoy reading that. Also, the audiobook narrator is not the kind of narrator I enjoy. So the audiobook is just annoying me from that perspective. And it's doing the same thing where it's written like in a historical context, but there's lots of like modern dialogue. And again, like that is the way Greek mythology is kind of written. But that doesn't mean that's what I enjoy. And also, I'm a total hypocrite because all the criticisms I'm giving are part of what I'm really enjoying about the Percy Jackson book. I don't have it here. I'll put a nice picture of it. Much more beautiful cover than the one I got for free from the library. So I'm really enjoying this one. I think I'm about 150 pages through, so nearly halfway. And this is using modern language, and it's all about the pettiness of the gods. But it's just so much more fast-paced, and the modern dialogue fits the overall tone of the story, whereas these other ones, it's the modern dialogue doesn't fit the tone of the rest of the story that's causing that inconsistency that I don't enjoy. But the Percy Jackson one is just really fun. It really calls out all the shitty things that the gods are doing as shitty things, which again is not something these other books are doing, even though I would think as adult, more literary books, they should be calling out the things that the gods are doing. So I think the Percy Jackson book is really good, and you can tell that Riordan really understands the Greek myths and has like a really deep knowledge of all the different myths, and he's pulling them all together in a really cohesive way. And I really think this Percy Jackson book would be a really great introduction to Greek mythology for young children or just anyone. It's a lot of fun. Whereas this, not a good introduction. And I don't know if any of the other Greek myth retellings that I've read would be good introductions either. And I'm glad I've got the Percy Jackson books. I think otherwise I'd be starting to doubt whether I really like Greek mythology. Anyway, the workday has started. I'm just trying to distract myself from the workday. I actually don't have that many things to do, so I'm going to try and do just a couple of things every hour. That's all my motivation can handle, honestly. And then it's going to be really weird at the end of the day because I'm not actually taking my laptop back until Christmas or closer to Christmas, and I'm still keeping all my access and accounts in case people need to urgently ask me a question or something. So it's kind of like I'm not finishing until Christmas, but I'm just on leave until Christmas. But I'm still somewhat available, and I can charge time if they do ask me stuff. But the whole thing is weird. It's going to be the weirdest last day I've ever had, probably. I'm going to miss that experience of like walking away from the office and leaving it all behind you. And like the last couple of jobs that I have finished up with, it's been beautiful sunny days and just like walking away into the sunshine. Oh, it was so nice. But today, it's raining and windy and horrible. So I don't feel like this last day is going to feel like a proper last day. But never mind, we'll see what happens.
Lazy Sunday mornings, hiding under covers. I don't mind staying in with you. Play your favorite movie, laying right beside me. I don't mind when it's just us two. That corner coffee shop we like to go. Late night walks with you to take me home.
Hello, so I've spent the last few days, how many days now since I wasn't working? I don't know, I've just been enjoying myself. Unfortunately, the first weekend was very rainy, but since then we've had a couple of really nice sunny days, and I'm starting to like really feel like I don't have to worry about work, even though I have had them bother me a couple of times. So hopefully not too much more of that. Anyway, let me update you on the books that I was reading. So firstly, I have finished off Stone Blind. I just think that there wasn't enough of the story of Medusa, and it's really, I think, trying to get you to question the definition of a monster and have sympathy for all these creatures in Greek mythology, and I guess just monsters in general, and think about how maybe the heroes aren't always as heroic as you might have thought. But there just wasn't enough of the Medusa story, and her character wasn't fully developed. So I didn't really get what I wanted from the story, and I think as well that whole like heroes aren't as heroic as you might think. That whole theme meant I didn't really enjoy the bits of Perseus's story, and then the other kind of bits that it included from Greek mythology I felt didn't fit that well into the story, even though I can see why those were the things they incorporated in. It just felt very incohesive. And to be honest, it felt like a bunch of different writing exercises around Greek mythology that had just kind of been stuck together. I guess some people might say that some bits were quite creative, but I don't know, it just felt pointless to me. And I will admit, the audiobook narrator definitely had a big negative effect on me reading this book. She kept reading things in like such a horrible bitchy voice all the time, and I think she was trying to like get across this emotion of like the petty gods and how, I guess, angry they were. But I hated it. And every now and then I would notice that there were some really beautiful lines, and then the way she would say it was like the most unbeautiful way of saying something ever, which just seemed really weird. So unfortunately, I didn't enjoy this. I'd love to get a really good retelling of Medusa, which like really builds Medusa out as a character and gives her her own story rather than just being part of Perseus's story. That's what I thought this was going to be. Anyway, the other thing I did was I finished this, and I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. A great overview of Greek mythology. The only thing I will say is that when I got to the end, I was like, cool, that was really good. I feel like I learned a lot about Greek mythology. I love all the stories which are kind of like explaining real life phenomenon. I like hearing people's explanations for the way things are in the world through fantastical stories. But I think other than that, reading this and these other ones has made me question, like, do I like Greek mythology? Or was it just that I enjoyed learning about Greek mythology originally, and now it's got this nostalgic feel to me, but actually that's enough of that and I don't need any more of it? I don't know. I think I might try and read some more stories based on Greek myth, but I might try and pick them quite carefully. If you have read any Greek mythology retellings or books around that kind of topic, and you think they are really interesting stories in and of themselves, like not just, I don't know what it is I'm trying to say, but I want some beautiful writing, some well-developed characters, and maybe that's just not what Greek mythology is. I don't know anymore, but I'm going to give it one more go at some point in the future. Give me your Greek mythology recommendations down below, and we'll see what we can come up with. Otherwise, let me know as well if you've read any of the books that I talked about in this video, because I would love to talk with you about those down in the comments as well. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.